Only a
Okay.
little. Here we are. Hi, everybody. Joe here, joined by Lara, Tambacopoulou. Did I say that right?
Excellent. Good job.
Amazing. Amazing.
You're
So
next.
glad to have you again. Um, we
Thank
did
you
an
for having
episode just the other day with Dr. Eugene Lipoff, which is amazing. Thanks for helping with that.
me. Sure.
And we're gonna,
He's fine.
yeah, we're gonna have a lot of fun today. Um, so can you give us a little bit of background, Laura, on who you are and how you got into this psychedelic world?
Oh, so it was a family business. um, yeah. So I got into this out of my own curiosity and also searching for avenues to expand my own awareness. So I guess, my mother was one of these sort of pioneers, women in the field since the 70s. We had a very intense story with Timothy Leary, as some of you may know. And for me, this was very much in the sidelines. It didn't really feature very much in my life. I never thought, oh, I want to know what this is and what were they doing. No, I just grew up away from that story, and it wasn't really until, I don't know, my mid-30s where I became curious and I started reading about it and asking my mom. And my mom was really great. She never really said, oh, would you like to try this and would you like to try that? Never. um, but just simply out of being around her in the later years, because we during all that 70s story, I wasn't in contact with her. So yeah, I went to Vancouver. I moved to Vancouver in 2013, already having read a lot of material and accounts and all of that. And I met Gabor Mate, and took my first trip to Mexico in one of his retreats, and I was completely blown away. And I thought, wow, this is unbelievable. What a secret. Um, and I think, I was in my, I don't know, early 40s, mid 40s, I can't remember where I was. Um, and so I took this very seriously. I felt the sacredness of it. I felt very protective. Um, I felt incredibly hopeful for the future. I thought this is incredible that, there are people that are really looking at these experiences, with such reverence. And so I became extremely interested in not just the substances or the actual experiences, but the experience of what it is to be a human being. Where do we go with this mind?
Mm.
Whether it's helped by breathing or exercising or taking some plant, the whole sort of potential that is so hidden by us when we're growing up. Nobody really talks about that stuff at school, and so I have a side of me that is a little bit nerdy in that way. I got completely over focused and over obsessive and read and made lots of friends in the field. And then I did a degree in counseling at the University of British Columbia. Made a lot of friends in the field. Continued my friendship with Gabor. Went to another retreat and then another one, and blah blah blah. And then I took a training. So I've done a 3-year training in psychedelic therapy, but it's not really. I went mostly for the expansion. You know. Um, And I think when you go into this field, so many other things open up. You know, who we are in the West, what are we doing, who we are in relationship with the rest of the world, the people who hold the medicines. We've never really looked at them from where we stand here, except in my experience, I had never met indigenous people before. I didn't know what they represented, So it opened up a whole new world for me, which I'm still navigating, still learning, and I don't think one lifetime will be enough.
Well, thankfully. So, I can you tell us a little bit about the project that you're working on right now that will be in May in Crete, is it?
No, it's on the island of Spetses, which is an island about 2.5 hours from Athens. You can go by car and then take a speedboat, and in 20 minutes you're there. And also there's a 2.5, 3 hour ferry from the port. So I think for me, after all these years of getting to know so many practitioners and so many people, and so the one thing I have studied, family constellations. That's one of the things that I've learned to do, is to facilitate systems. And I think the whole life is a system. And we do not learn one-to-one anymore. I don't think that's that effective unless it's for very specific things. I think being in groups and in an ecosystem, something gets breathed into us in a way that doesn't, on a one-to-one or cognitively anyway. And so I've always loved being in groups and retreats and all that. And then suddenly I just thought, I can do this. Let me make one the way I have been feeling it. And so I spoke with Gabor, who we've maintained a very close friendship. I said, why don't you come to Greece and I'll organize something? And he was great. He said, okay, I'll come to dates and just do what you want. And so I built it really from its roots, So we have Gabor, we have this beautiful island. And so then I invited Rosalind Watts, who was the investigator guide, clinical guide for the research studies that were done at Imperial. We're good friends, and I said, why don't you come and help with that? Then I invited Cynthia Gers, who is a Buddhist Tibetan Lama, is also very understands medicine really well. And her teaching, I've been to a couple of her retreats, and her teachings really resonate with me. So anyway, we built a little team that I felt will be, really inspiring to people. And then we put a website, and then we started bringing people in. And what I love about this is that it's kind of a work in progress. It happens as it happens. Like I didn't have a preconception of it. I thought we'll get together and see what we can give people. It's taking place between the 25th to the 29th of May. People can book rooms, and then there'll be sessions all day that will be mostly immersive. People ask me, is this going to be a conference? No, it's not going to be a conference. We're going to dive deep into some themes like grief and loss and connection, and who we are as activists in the world. What do we do with these beautiful selves of ours once we've done a little bit of healing? I feel we are in a place right now in our history, in the biography of this planet, that we don't really have 20 years time for psychotherapy. We got to get together and change things. So that's my dream, that something will be born, will emerge from how people will be transformed during those 5 days. People will get together, will create projects, will create friendships, support. And, that happens a lot at the moment, which I think is really fantastic. And that's another attempt to just give a little bit more into the world. The idea really is to kind of put people through something that they can bring into the world themselves afterwards. So, yeah.
Great. So I'm so happy that you get to do that. And I think you're right. We don't have all that much time to get our acts together. And
No.
yeah, interesting that psychedelics are coming forward at this time in quite a
Yeah, and we'll have
robust
a
way.
conversation about psychedelics. I mean, psychedelics is a curious thing, you know. I mean, not everyone, but it's really in the mainstream. A lot of people are using them, and they're illegal. So it's a bit cuckoo, the whole thing. It's so anyway, we're gonna have a conversation about it. And about, I mean, my main focus now on psychedelics, okay, they do heal. They are extraordinarily helpful. We do need to have proper integration and all of that. But also, they are a huge container for learning what it is to be human on this planet. You know, they give us some very important information: how to treat each other, what to do with this earth that we're walking on, the air we're breathing, the food we're eating. We're learning a lot of things. And I think when we heed them and we hear what they have to say, also other things that needed healing, they come into effect, you know. We begin to live in different ways, you know. So, I mean, you know, people take psychedelics and they go, I can never touch alcohol again after this. And that's a good thing. Um, so there's a bigger effect that psychedelics are having, not just, you know, for therapy or psychiatry or um, whatever else they're used there. Yeah. So we're gonna have a little panel there with Rosalind, and probably Gabor and Robert will come and discuss, you know, what are we learning from them and what it is we need to take from what they're giving us into the world. And then Rosalind is going to lead one of these amazing meditations she does based on various trees, because she's also teaching people that they can reach those states without ingesting anything, but really connecting with the attributes of plants and trees just by looking at them and feeling them. So we'll have lots of adventures.
It's lovely. Yeah, Roz Watts has come and shared about her tree model. I find it really interesting, and to me, it feels kind of like a little bit of Celtic Druidic revival or something
Yeah.
like that, which is nice. I think that's important to kind of relate back to the traditions that we've had.
And that's what we were discussing, you know, before we came on. You know, we all have our own ancestry and mysticism connected to it. And I think there's a very large group of people in England that are beginning to connect to their Celtic roots. I was at Medicine Festival a couple of years ago, and there was a lot of talk about you know, that ancestry, and I think it's beautiful that people are reconnecting to all this.
So rewinding a bunch, when
Okay.
when did you start realizing that perhaps psychedelics were interesting? Like, because they were always around. Like, was there a moment when they were kind of like boring? You're like, that's stuff that parents do or old people do.
No, I mean, look, I grew up in Greece with my great grandparents. My mother kind of shipped me off when all this Timothy Leary thing exploded. So here, where I am in Athens now, nobody was really using psychedelics. It was, you know, only my hippie mother was doing it, the Rolling Stones and whoever else, and it was something really nobody talked about. So I wasn't really. Then I moved to London when I was 20 or something, and I began to be a little bit aware of them. Um, and then I had an experience when I was 27, which was extraordinarily beautiful. I, you know, I asked my mother about it, and she was really profound about it. You know, she really prepared me, and she said, you know, just surrender. and see what happens. And I was lucky because, I've never really had a bad trip on anything really, except, momentarily. But it was very interesting because I had this experience when I was 27, and then I didn't touch anything for 15 years. It filled me up so much. It changed my life so hugely that I didn't really talk about it. I didn't really want more. It was truly I don't know who said you open the door and you look inside and then you close it, or window, whatever it is. It was totally like that. And, and I think that's what sparked my curiosity remained. And I think the next thing that happened, I watched yes, the next thing that happened is I mean, my mother used to travel to Ecuador and places, but I didn't really connect with what she was doing. And then I watched the documentary, a 60 Minutes documentary by David Suzuki, where it was called The Jungle Prescription. And he was following Gabor Mate, who was trying to work with addicts in Vancouver, heavy addicts. And he went down to the Amazon, to the jungle. I think in that documentary, he visited Jacques Mabi, the doctor who opened Takiwasi, which is an addiction center. And I was completely blown away by all of this. I thought, this is amazing. I mean, seriously? And that was a couple of months before I moved to Vancouver. So everything sort of came together. And then I met Gabor, and then we talked, and then he said, come to Mexico. And then, and then I experienced this. And I never really, talking about, it's just about what parents do. I never really had any bad feeling about drugs. Never thought they were bad in any way. Obviously, I didn't want people to die from overdoses and things like that. But in terms of us having the right to play with our consciousness, never felt there was anything wrong with that. I will never stop feeling that, this is the right thing to do. We're here for a short time, and I think it's important that we have a full experience. And we should help each other. That's also the other aspect. I tell people, don't do this alone. This is it's a connective experience. It's enhanced by connection. And I think a lot of people, try things alone at home and they fall off the cliff, the metaphorical cliff, and it's hard. So.
Right. Doing this with people and not being the solo psychonaut, I think is really important. I've never been that solo psychonaut, but I've met a lot of them. And it's really hard and a little scary sometimes. And you're like, you've built out some really interesting walls here in games for yourself. And
That's right.
how are you?
Right.
I gave you 13 to 15 suggestions after you asked me for help, but all of them are no good. I'm like, okay, I don't know. So, yeah. Do you see that people can kind of like build their own little fortress if they're not in
Absolutely.
community?
I mean, I think,
Yeah.
if you do this alone, so we come into this life, think of this infant. We come into this life completely open, like the sun, there's a big sun shining, everything's open, you're a complete open consciousness. Then, okay, school, parents, conditioning comes, and, the self begins to kind of arm itself
Yeah.
in order to survive further pain. It, the brain always predicts more disaster if there's been previously. So it's always kind of preempting more. Okay. So then if you're on your own and you do this, you'll continue doing the same thing. So you'll use these substances and these states to arm yourself even more, because in order for you to disarm yourself, you need to be in an environment with people that can hold you safely and tell you, it's okay for you to disarm. We're good. We're not going to hurt you. But when you're alone, you don't have that. So all you do, so it's just, I get it when you say people are all kind of like that, because they're using these compounds to kind of go, okay, well, I can be even better at holding myself inside, and and also, the brain's plastic. Set and setting is paramount, and set and setting also means who are you with yourself or with someone else, and it can go many ways. An experience like that, many ways.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yeah.
that is the danger. That is where people need to be super trained about the danger of that. You can brainwash somebody pretty effectively on a psychedelic, if you wanted to. I'm not saying people want, but what I'm trying to say is that you are so vulnerable in plastic. And so when in your own company, you're just going to follow the narrative that you have been building all your life. You don't have anyone to pierce that, and to kind of say, okay, let's look at something different here. So, yeah.
Do you offhand know anything about the drug use at Osho or Rajneesh Param? I think there was a good amount of MDMA use, which is
Really?
interesting.
Up
I
in
haven't been
Oregon?
able to find any. Right. I haven't found any good reading on it yet. But I have heard that there's a decent amount of drug use there, which is fascinating to me.
Wow.
But it somewhat makes sense from their like kind of tantric perspective. Didn't
Yeah.
super end well for at least a handful of them. But
I mean, it was, yeah. Um, I wouldn't be surprised. It
right.
was, that whole movement was so over sexualized. And okay, people are free and all that, but there was a lot of emphasis on, uh, you know, sex, nudity, and of course, all of these things have a place. Um, but I'm sure I wouldn't be surprised if something facilitated that focus. I mean, for me,
Right.
the biggest um, takeaway from this series I watched was that he owned 70 Rolls Royces. I mean,
I think that was a game. Oh, he got another one, and everybody would kind of be like,
I was like,
amazing.
why would you have 70 of the same car? I couldn't get it. Even if it was, I don't know, a Fiat Mini or Mini Cooper, or I don't know, tiny car, whatever it was, 70 times the same car. Um, so that brings me to a very favorite subject,
Oh,
which is,
please.
yes, which is, when do we get enough? That feeling of satiety, I never know how to pronounce that name.
No one does.
Yeah, I mean, in different parts of the world, they say it differently. So anyway, I tried both. But that sense of enough, which eludes certain people. It's very obvious. You can tell who they are. There's this feeling of dissatisfaction that there's always, nothing's really quite doing it. And let's get some more, and we end up with 70 Rolls Royces. And it's something that I think they're now looking at scientifically. I had a brief email with a researcher at NYU. They are researching satiety as a concept and as a biological condition, and maybe a genetic glitch, because it's very much linked also with obesity and the GLP-1 medications, that there's certain people that don't finish, they don't complete their fulfillment, and that goes for everything: food, sex, shopping, power, money, and I think we see a surge of that at the moment. So I'm very interested in that kind of in that subject at the moment, and if there is some sort of psychedelic protocol that can make people aware of this and go, yeah, I have enough, I'm good. I remember Lynn Twist, who wrote a fabulous book. I've given it to both my kids to read. I think it's really important at the age of Instagram and flashing brands and all that, where they all think they have to make so much money. She wrote a book called The Soul of Money a while ago, and I read it, and she's the first one that made me aware of that sense of enough. And she says in there that everybody's sense of enough is different. You know, it's different for a kid in Africa. It's different for an executive in New York or whatever. But she says we all can gauge when we've reached it. If we really focus, we know when we go, I'm good, I'm really good. And when you don't listen to that and you keep surpassing it, you keep going for more, then illness hits. You become sick. And then the culture becomes sick. And the rest is history. So that's, yeah. And so I'm really hoping the people that are taking themselves on various journeys, that they can really see. I think when we are so open, we have an expanded state of being, we see that everything's enough. It's all perfect.
Yeah. Yeah. The idea of enough is important. And I think it's kind of hang up the phone adage, maybe. But also, sometimes you want to pick it back up again, and that might be okay if you took a good enough break.
Yeah.
Um, yeah. And I think there's like let's name it like ketamine a little bit. Like is there really enough when there's a little bit of an addiction behind that drug?
No.
Um, it can be really slippery. I've
Yeah. This one is
chatted with a
just,
lot of people
yeah.
about it. You've seen it
I,
too?
I've seen it, especially, I lived in London for 35 years with a little break in Vancouver. So I know a lot about what was going on there, and the kids are really, they're all on it. And it's a very big problem. The hospital, the ERs of the hospitals are full of them having issues with bladders. And it's very addictive. Um, so yes, I've seen it. And this one, it's a tricky one, this one, because also we have legal therapies with it because it's used off label. So again, it's a little bit like alcohol, but we're using it. It's okay, but then when you use it too much, it's addictive. I'm not saying that alcohol is therapeutic, but it's very available. It's cheap, and that's how a psychedelic goes bad, basically. Um, yeah, that's an example. Unfortunately,
Right. I yeah, sometimes I think there's something about the use case where people are like, "Let me just do this, and then I'll go do that thing," as a thinking it's like a cannabis or a coffee or a beer or something, and it's like, well, it's a little different than that, especially when it's every day, many times a day. Um, yeah.
yeah, and it's really, really very easy to fall into. I'm going to say something very personal here, and I
Mhm.
tell people because I've never really got addicted to anything except I used to smoke a lot of cigarettes back in the day. I mean, I haven't smoked in a very long time, but um, I think it was 2019, 18. I don't know when these dispensaries in Vancouver started being legal. And you could go walk in and buy a pen with the oil. And I was never a big cannabis smoker. I mean, I would pick it up at a party here and there, but it wasn't really something I kept at home or anything like that. So I walked in a shop, in the store, and I bought a pen and I bought a couple of flavors. And I thought, oh, I can do this from time to time. It's great. Literally within 4 days, I was completely addicted. I would wake up in the morning, take a puff after an hour. Anyway, by the time 10 days went by, I knew I was trapped. I was trapped in this thing. I mean, maybe my own physiological and psychological makeup made me a good candidate for it. I'm not saying everybody gets addicted, but I was literally feeling like I was trapped in a net I couldn't get out. Thankfully, I was older and my prefrontal cortex is quite strong. And I made a decision and I threw the pens away and I've never touched them since. I really tasted addiction, how it creeped up in me. So, yeah, it happens. We have to
Yeah.
be careful.
Yeah, absolutely. It's good you were able to do that. I've
I mean,
been
I was not, I mean, maybe it would be different if I was functioning, but I couldn't function. I was just sitting on the sofa, looking outside in the trees, and that's all I did. And then the phone would ring, and then I had to eat, and I didn't do any of these things. I didn't take care of my business. I didn't take care of myself. I was just sitting there with my little pen, sort of spacing out. And I thought, this is unbelievable. I cannot believe I'm living like this. So, I mean, I've told this story to people, and some of them go, "No, I never get this." But for me, it was like the end.
yeah. Um yeah, it's fascinating when you can actually put a number typically on cigarettes, like how many did you smoke today? With these vapes, it's like how many did you do? I have no
And
idea. I have no idea. And
I have no
imagine if they
idea.
had tracking apps where it's like, oh, you went through like what 1300 milligrams of nicotine today. Like that's like,
Oh
oh
my
boy, you might need to go to the hospital.
God.
But yeah, it's fascinating. And there's new data now where it's like, yes, it's probably safer than cigarettes, but also by how much? And then, there's a lot of questions. I was chatting with Ethan Needleman from the Drug Policy Alliance a while ago, probably
Mm.
might have been even 4 years ago. And he's saying that if everybody stopped smoking cigarettes now and only vaped, it would be the largest ever public health victory in the history of humanity. But it's also like these things are crazy addicting. And what is the harm profile? I guess we know the harm profile of cigarettes really well, but we don't necessarily know it around vapes, especially at the insanely high levels at which people are doing it these days. Um, and yeah, we're seeing a lot of kind of arterial hardening, I think, from it and
Oh, there's
other
a lot. But
cardiac
also,
issues.
I think there was a doctor friend of mine that said to me years ago, and I really never forgot that because I did like to smoke, and I guess I would like it even if I did it now. I mean, it's, but I don't. But I remember he said to me, anything that's not fresh air, your lungs don't like it. So don't debate. If it's not fresh air, don't put it down there. So I go along by that. I tell my kids the same. They don't smoke, but sometimes they kind of flirt with the idea of it, and I go, don't do this. This is just, and a lot of people go, oh, the ICOS is better, and the electronic this is better. Doesn't hurt. It's not fresh air. That's what I tell them. If it's not fresh air, it's not good. So yeah.
Yeah, I I've always wanted to pick up smoking. It's just never worked.
Oh wow, that's
Maybe
I like
maybe
that.
someday.
Okay. Well, I didn't know how to smoke. And I called a friend. I must have been about 15. I called a friend from a phone, a land phone, because we didn't even have cell phones at the time. And I said, I've stolen a cigarette and I don't really know how to smoke it. So he told me how to. He says, take a big, and that was it. I was like, oh God, okay. So yeah.
Huh. So there's a lot of directions we can go now. So I'm thinking about kind of where we were before around our own kind of cultural traditions. And I've been, not that it's bad, it's just not for me to jump into, Shipibo land, or, I'm not going to really try to engage with the Native American church traditions all that much. Like I've participated in ceremony hosted by Shipibo, but I'm like, didn't make it my identity. I don't have the jewelry or anything, I don't have any art. I appreciated it. But I also feel like there's an American term. I don't know if you guys have this, culture vulture.
Sure. Well, we don't
Yeah.
have that, but we've heard it over there.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So like it's perhaps like more an aesthetic pick or choice. Um, but it's
I think
also
it has
just
many levels, this sort of, flocking down to South America, bringing back the necklaces and the spears and whatever, the earrings and all this. It tells us also another story that we are lacking our own traditions. Connection with our, as we said before, our own ancestry is, that sort of connection has fizzled out, and we're looking for something. I really, really understand and believe that, one of the biggest problems that we're facing, and I'm not the first one who says that by no means, we don't have a connection to the sacred. So we go there, so we come out in life 25, 30 years old, and we realize we're hugely traumatized by not just our parents, but the way this Western ecosystem works. It comes at us in all kinds of ways that are hurtful. We don't know how to be good enough for it because, there's a huge expectation from people in the West to be amazing at what they do, make lots of money, all that. And not everybody can do it. So there's more trauma on top of it. Then we go to South America, and we see what we're lacking. We see all of these things we're like, oh my God, and so we start bringing it in. We're not, I don't feel we're taking it from them because they can't lose it. But we are borrowing something that's not ours. We bring it home because we so need it. I think that's the story I see. That is, we're lacking connection with the trees, with the universe, with whatever's out there. Some sort of mystery is there. We can't deny that.
so
And
kind of the cultural set that we're kind of borrowing leans towards that and gives us a feeling of connection. Is that?
yeah, that's it. Well, it gives us what we're missing. I mean,
Mhm.
people are always trying to fill in gaps. We have places in us and in our culture that are hollow for
Mhm.
ABC reasons. I don't know, different for different people, and we do go out there and fill them up. Okay, so one hollowness of this Western world is this lack of spirituality, lack of understanding, larger understanding, being connected with the elements, being connected with nature, with the skies, the stars, whatever it is that other peoples are connected to. We've lost that. Okay, we know that. And then we go and we see it somewhere else intact, and we want it. But nobody, I think people need to begin to wake up to the fact that you can go home and search under the rubble of this civilization what was there for your people. Because there are. I mean, I was looking at these costumes from Central Europe a couple of days ago in a book. My goodness, the intricacy and the detail and the embroidery, you know. And I know the Shipibo, they make all I mean, this behind me is Shipibo, this um, sort of drawing on. But it's everywhere. People have been like this for millennia, creating beautiful things, telling stories through their art, through costumes, through paintings, through music, all of that. So, yeah, this is what I'm trying to say. We don't have something here, and we go and look for it somewhere else. We go to
Mhm.
Brazil, we go to Africa, we go to, and so I think I mean, I have said always that, let's see, MDMA is our substance. It's our sacrament. It's the sacrament of the West. We created it in a lab. That's okay, because this is who we are. But it was made to help with what ails us. You know, I think we are extremely fearful as people. We have deep fears because we are so alone, because we are so disconnected from the elements and from each other. So our fear, like our amygdala, is just flashing nonstop, alert, alert, alert. So here's what we've done: we've created a sacrament, because I will call it a sacrament. I know it's a drug, it's a
Mm-hmm.
chemical, that gives us a few hours of shutting that down, that fear, so that we can remember who we are. And that's perfect. So that's a step in the right direction. But again, how do we use it? Who administers it? How do we hold each other with it? All of that.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I There's so many ways to look at these things, and I think, yeah, what America or the West needed was this MDMA molecule to break down these kind of really vigorous, very strong walls that had been developed. Um, and I think, have you ever seen this book, The Art of Ecstasy?
No.
It's this really funny raver from UK. Um, he saved an ecstasy pill from every batch he bought from the
Yeah.
early days, and say
Ah,
and did really high resolution photography. I think his name is Rupert, maybe.
okay.
Um, Gorgeous book, but in his kind of intro, he talks about how nearly overnight culture in England kind of flipped, where a lot of these guys were just fighting, fist fighting every night at the bar because of this football team or that football team,
Hmm.
and whatever. I can't relate at all, but they were, they started raving, and all of a sudden they were friends.
Yeah. And, I've been to raves in England, and, I mean, I'm not a raver, but I've been to a few of them, and
Hmm.
I noticed something extraordinary. The Brits are very different people in their raves. They're finally given a chance to be close to each other. They have very difficult upbringing. They've had for several generations very cold upbringing, the British. Whether that was at home, at school, in boarding school, then in university, they were taught to be extremely alone and tough. They conquered the world. They had to. They had to completely cut off their compassion for other people. And so, let's call it, I don't know when this medicine came out, 60s, was it? When was MDMA synthesized?
Oh gosh. Um, it started, I don't know the date, but things really heated up in the mid to late 70s
Right.
with it. There was an MDA
Yeah.
trend that the Grateful Dead and others were on. MDMA came shortly after. Um, and yeah, so really, really big through the 80s.
Yeah. So, and that's where I kind of first became aware of it. And I used to go to a place called Mega Tripolis, which used to be heaven every Thursday, and people would take MDMA and just dance and be friends, And it was beautiful. The music was great. Friendships were made. And I could really tell, even, I mean, I was really young then, but I could just tell, no, it wasn't, it was the 90s, how needed that was. And so, when I'm saying this is the sacrament that we have created for ourselves, I really mean that, because it does. And, I have a whole lot of qualms about what it does to the brain, and it's a little toxic, and don't take it too often, and blah, blah, blah. I will tell you all that. But I think it's worth it whenever you take it, and you're in a good environment, because it's a huge heart opener. And it gives people a glimpse of what's possible, not so much in a otherworldly way, but in how they can use that in their everyday lives. And that's where we need to start, in the here and now. How can I be more loving to myself? How can I be more loving to you? And then spread it around.
Have you met Annie Oak?
No,
Oh, have you heard the name?
I'm not sure. It
Amazing.
sounds like
All
a
right.
great name.
So, yeah, she's great. So, Annie
Great.
Oak is in charge of Lucid News, which does a lot of really good publishing.
Mm-hmm.
Journalist in San Francisco covering kind of tech, but deep in the psychedelic culture. And she had this really interesting rant at one point. Not even rant, it was just highly polished explanation on why LSD is her culture's plant medicine, and about how like ergot was used in the mountains of Switzerland for ages, and for
Where's she from?
XYZ reasons. What was that?
Where's she from?
San Francisco. I don't know where she's from originally, but she's claiming Swiss ancestry, I think.
Okay.
Um, and it was fascinating to just hear how tight her argument was about how this is my culture's plant medicine.
Yeah, I'd be very interested to talk to her. I mean, I've never met her, but I can totally see that. I
Yeah.
know Switzerland really well. I was born there, and my mom was born there, and I spent a lot of time there. So I can just see how she would consider, this medicine was kind of popped up uh, in the lab in Sandoz, in Hoffman's hands. You just wonder how accidentally it was made and discovered and kind of improvised, and yet not at the same time, because it's just it was the perfect thing that happened at
Hmm.
the time, and still is for some people. I mean, it's a long ride, but
Yeah.
but yeah.
Thank,
So I
thank
can see
goodness I have enough time only at Burning Man. I wish I had more time, but I just,
just
yeah.
at it.
So, it is interesting though, because this is a sort of like a playbook. I'd love to have somebody like Forte comment on this, but like, what were the traditional plant medicines? What were they used for? Let's try to do variants on the molecule to see if there's clinical use or something sellable here. And that is the playbook, right? Like pharma is still doing that today. Um,
But
and mhm.
I think, like, for example, you reminded me, there used to be, and I was looking for it the other day. There used to be a pill in France for depression that was made out of ibogaine.
Right. Before prohibition, you could buy ibogaine over the counter.
It was
Um,
called Libreville or something like that. What was it called? Do you know the name?
I'll pull it up. But did
I
you ever
mean,
try it?
no, I've never tried it. Um, I mean, I've tried the compound. I haven't tried Libreville. I mean, I think
Yeah.
that's the name of Gabon's um, capital, but it had a funny name that resembled Libreville. But it was in a proper sort of, I think it was Sandoz or Roche or one of these big pharma.
Mm.
And I'm like, they're now doing it, microdosing ibogaine in hiding, and it's illegal. And they already had that and working apparently very well.
Lamborine, 8
That's it.
milligram tablets until
That's it.
1970. It wasn't removed from market till 70,
That's
which is
it.
wild.
That's it.
Um, yeah. Semi-synthetic ibogaine, um, lamborine. Yeah. I particularly like ibogaine at really low doses. I don't know if other
Yeah.
people are really interested in it. Like your life can really accelerate and like the half-life is really long, so you're like
Yes.
kind of in a way you're adding a lot that doesn't really go away if you keep doing it in a microdose form, which might
Yeah.
be okay, but also there's risks there.
Mhm.
I made sure to get my heart checked out so I could do some ibogaine.
Yeah. Well, I've never done a big dose, but I have done
Mhm.
bigger than microdoses in a group setting, and it's really, really beautiful.
Mm.
But it's not for everyone. What I'm trying to say, some people get extremely sick with it, have difficult visions. So again, it's a trial and error thing.
Right. And so we kind of underplayed your training story.
Yeah.
You've been around the world and you've been with a lot of these groups doing this stuff, and kind of got a taste of a lot of different traditional uses, right?
Mhm.
So you've been in kind of a Bwiti zone, Shipibo zone.
Yeah, and
Hmm.
so what I want to say about that, because people say, "Oh yeah, I've been to the Wheatie, I've been to the people and all that." What was really different from our visits were the instructions we were given before we went from our program is that we're not really going as service users, let's call it. We're not going for a retreat where we're going to sit back and they're going to be serving us. We are going to just live with them for a bit. And so we went to Virikuta in Peyote land. We went to the desert there, and we went to Shipibo and all that. And the idea was that, we lived with them for a while, and we cooked food and we served food and we were instructed by them. We did not, we were really explained that we are not there to teach them anything. If we want them to learn something from us, they need to ask us. So we took a very respectful stance, obviously, but also a very humble stance. You go there to learn from them. And it's a very different experience than going, I've paid $3,000 to come and drink yahe for 5 days and then I've left, I'm healed. No, it wasn't like that at all. It was really a learning experience. We would watch them, how they sang to each other, how they laughed all night, how they did prayers, how they slept during the day and ate. And whenever they felt, they would come and sort of gather us all together and explain a few things to us about the jungle, about their medicine, about their grandfathers. And it was really a process of assimilation rather than, oh, they taught us, you have to stare at the vine and the thing for 5 hours and then take it on an empty stomach. No, it was very much more of a transmission. Yeah. And also, you know, it wasn't something that because we felt so humbled by this, it wasn't something that we wanted to come out and say, oh, imagine that, this is what I saw and this is what they said. No, we just went home quietly. And that's what I love about this training, that it humbles you up moment by moment. And I think if you're going to do this work, that's number one requirement, because we don't know anything. Our brains are untrained. They haven't seen things that they have because we don't live in that world. And so we really have to we have to surrender completely. Keep our spines straight, but surrender. Yeah.
Yeah.
Right. Yeah.
Um, so a few other tangents here. What can you tell us about is it called Future Primitive Podcast?
Yeah. So that was a podcast my mom started in 2006, which was pretty new for its. I mean, nobody knew. I didn't know what a podcast was at the time.
Probably
She,
in the first 200 ever podcasts. Like,
no, I think even less than that. I mean, I
right.
have to give her credit because I remember saying to her, what is a podcast? I've got to go into my podcast. She was going like this. Anyway, she absolutely loved doing it. And, she got in contact with so many incredible people. And it's something I continue. Like sometimes I will do a podcast on her platform. But I think we learned so much from such amazing people that until that whole podcast trend began, and I know my mom felt that she was one of the pioneers of it, and I'll give her that, because it's true that a lot of people were not heard in this world until she began to hold them and interview them. And so, yeah, I mean, I hold it very dearly, Future Primitive. And I want to tell people who are listening, go back to the episodes. Even if you go back 5 years, 6 years, 7 years, 10 years, they're still so relevant. The voices that are speaking in there have said some very useful things, that are timeless. So for me, I treat it a little bit like an encyclopedia. In the old days, we had these big, thick books before the internet, and we'd go, oh, I want to learn about, what is, I don't know, a fir tree. We'd open, we'd just kind of, go through it. So now, if I want to learn about something, I will go through my mom's podcast and see, okay, I want to learn about mescaline. And so she has an amazing interview on mescaline. What is it? Its whole history behind it and all that. It's one of my favorite episodes. That's why I've mentioned it. I actually have a book here of the guy who was on it. But anyway, so yeah, it's a fantastic resource. So yeah, Future Primitive, love it.
Yeah. And so it was really meaningful to me in my early days too. And I she had a turn of phrase around kind of permaculture, and it was around planting water. So in an ecosystem, by planting trees, you're also like actually planting water in that, like 20, 30, 40,000 gallons, depending on the environment and the tree.
Wow.
And how big of a deal that is for certain ecosystems is hard to overstate. And, given our kind of strange climate times, that's a big deal.
Yeah. No, and she wrote about the environment. I have a lot of her writing on her laptop, and she wrote beautiful things. But I also think, for her, that was her schooling. My mom didn't finish school. She was pretty wild and, 60s and all that. And then she always said, I got educated by these people because of my own curiosity. I went looking for them, and they gave me and the world that listened so much that there was no way she would have been in touch in any university or, we had this lovely experience with Chris Beisch, who, as you know, had these very profound experiences on LSD and then wrote a couple of books on it. And she was the first one who brought his work out. She interviewed him and really believed in him and all that. And at the end, when she was dying, we asked to do a little blessing, and he sent a 20-minute little recording of him thanking her, and then he sang he chanted a little bit, and we posted it. It's on the if you go to Spotify, it's one of the last episodes there. And I thought that was so beautiful. We played it to her, I think 2 days before she died. She wasn't really in contact with us, but I'm sure she listened to her. And that was, the culmination of all this work in Chris's voice, saying, thank you for bringing this narrative to the world. And, I really want to say here, as we're speaking, this is coming to me, that, this was who she was. She was that work more than all the Timothy Leary escapade and trying to get him out of jail, taking LSD every day. I mean, that was okay. That was maybe preparation, but really her legacy was that podcast. Yeah. So, and she was extremely proud of it.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
That's awesome. And, the intersection. Could you say your mom's name? I don't think everybody knows. I don't think we named her.
Yeah, her name was Joanna Harcourt Smith.
Yeah. And she intersected a lot with the folks at Synergia Ranch because she was in Santa Fe, right?
Yeah, she lived in Santa Fe. So the story was, I mean, my mom was born in Switzerland and grew up in Paris and kind of all that. And then she moved to America when I was about 3, 4. She went to America for a little while, remarried my brother's dad. She had my brother, and then she met Leary in Switzerland, where he was friends with the Rolling Stones. They all got together and all that. And then I left. I was about 5 years old at the time. Anyway, when Leary got out of prison, they put them in a witness protection program, and they told them, "Oh, we've got a house for you in Salt Lake City." And Leary said, "No, change that to Santa Fe." So they did. And they got them a beautiful house up in the Pecos Trail, and they lived there. My mother said, "That's it, I'm moving here." So then they split, whole thing went off. She moved to an island in the Caribbean. She bought a boat and she lived there because she was really scared that somebody was going to come and kill her, because they had snitched on a lot of people to get Leary out of jail. And the FBI dropped them after they split up. There was no witness protection, and she was really terrified. So she bought a boat and went there for 5 years. But anyway, when all of that kind of calmed down, and she got sober because she had really got addicted to everything under the sun. She got sober, went to rehab. She got sober and stayed sober, clean till she died. And she went to Santa Fe and she found community there, and she lived there till she died. So she lived there for about 40 years. And as we know, there's a lovely community of people there, you know. Um, and so she met all the Synergia Ranch, and they were all close and doing great things together and inspiring each other. And yeah, and
Mm.
she really revered Johnny Allen, and saying that he was an angel genius, she used to call him. My mother had an
I like
amazing
that and can see
story.
that.
Yeah, he's still around.
Hmm. Yeah, I need to go visit again.
Yeah.
Such a beautiful scene down there in Santa Fe.
Oh yeah. I mean, for me, it's my second home. I go there. I have still my mom's friends and some of my friends, and I go there. I could just spend months there.
Mm.
Cynthia is coming from Santa Fe to the retreat in May, and also Lenya Reese, she's an integrative doctor. She's part of that whole crowd there. Um, yeah, I'm so happy they're coming. And yeah, I mean, Santa Fe, if you really want to go taste some real life and real people and conscious people, just go spend there some time.
Yeah.
They're doing a good job at being, a new kind of culture. Yeah, I think they are a good model for us, how they live down there.
Hmm. Yeah. They're yeah. I'm regularly impressed and wildly comfortable every time I'm there. And I know they've produced a lot of events, and can't
Yeah.
wait to see, what they're able to pull off in the future. Yeah, I owe Tango a call. Tango, I'll call you soon.
Katanga, hi. I don't know if she's watching, but there you are.
Let's hope so.
So,
Yeah.
so also, this also tells us something really important, that, we're having all these conversations, how the world should be, and how, we have to course correct, and blah, blah, blah. And it's happening. I really believe it's happening, and it's happening in more places than just Santa Fe. It's happening in England, it's happening in Greece, it's happening in France, in Switzerland. There are people emerging differently from their histories, from whatever's happening in the world, from their psychedelic journeys, from their connection to each other. There is a sort of emerging from the ashes. I truly, truly believe that. And we do need to have a good eye for that. Really hold it close, that this is the truth. I don't think 10 years ago, 15, 20 years ago, that what's happening now was going on at the time. People would just go about their business, doing their thing. They weren't really that curious. They weren't reading what we're reading today. So, yes, the world is in a very tough place, but it's also correcting itself from within.
Right. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
There's this story I heard recently talking about the West's whole divergence from um, feeling more connected to the planet and each other, and the gems it yielded for us in our time of divergence. And it was like antibiotics, computers, and quantum science, and
Right.
higher mathematics, and we got to space. So it's like, now, hey, let's pump the brakes and like get it together for a minute before we do another one of those.
Yeah. I mean, also we have to be careful because, we keep saying, the Western world has failed, has hurt us, has all that. But there's also some incredible things about the Western world, I love it. I wouldn't live anywhere else. I love my brain. I love how many things I can learn. Sometimes it's a little too much, the influx of data and information and all that. But my goodness, we've done some incredible things. I think what's lacking is containers to help us be with all this newness, and instead we're saying things like, we're not made for this. Well, if we weren't made for this, how did we create it? I don't think it's true that we make things that are we're not made for. I think what we need to begin to develop is resilience and ways of shedding what's old and unnecessary and move on and keep renewing. That sense of renewal, for example, other cultures have this very, very strongly. We don't have it here. We don't know how to do this. So we pile up, we explode, people get depressed, people get sick and all that. But we're completely capable of renewing, of sifting through,
Mm-hmm.
and because that's what's asked of us. When I go through the news in the morning, I don't remember it like 20 minutes later what happened, because somehow my system lets it go. So, yeah.
It's evolutionary phase gates, perhaps.
Yeah,
And
and
it gets
also,
a little, I feel like this might be inflammatory, but the info and exopsychology. But like, this is when we're about to evolve to the next thing, like it gets bumpy and it feels not
yeah,
great. And that
yeah,
happens everywhere, right? From divorce to probably marriage, even kids, all of it. And,
yeah.
what does it mean that we're becoming a planetary global species, or are? And then, we don't act like it yet. And then we have to figure out, what does an extraplanetary species look like?
We'll see. We'll see where it takes us. I mean,
Hmm.
it's definitely taking us somewhere. And we're in the midst of
Yeah. Right.
those waves, those kids that get lost in the waves, and you can see these legs
Hmm.
coming up. So a little bit, you know, something like that, and see what washes out in the shore. But I think this is a wonderful world. I mean, one of the things that I love is the capacity of our brains, as I said at the beginning, and of our minds, and how we're becoming. There's a trend to take care of ourselves and okay, there's all this anti-aging and longevity and all that, but people don't want to lose their minds. Mainly, that's the main thing, because they are extraordinary things, minds, brains. They can do incredible things. And I don't think there's ever been a time where people, the collective, has been so focused on the capacity of the mind, not just its capacity as, you know, what it can do, but also its capacity as, you know, creating reality. We are complete agents. You know, we have complete agency over our own reality. I am a big fan of, I don't know if you know, the predictive brain theory. And the predictive brain theory tells you, you know, your brain doesn't react to things. It predicts everything and then acts accordingly. So if you really understand this concept, then you can create predictive priors, as they call them, and turn your reality within a few minutes. And I'm not talking, I don't want to name names, but, you know, people who make you do a meditation and you've healed your cancer and things like that. No, I'm not talking about that. But I'm talking about, you know, laying the ground for your own future. You can do it because of what we know of how it works, not because we are any different, but because we now begin to understand the function of the brain, how it's connected to the body, you know, and all of that stuff. And then psychedelics come in and give us a big blast of knowledge, which is great. So I think it's really fun to be here at the moment.
Right.
As well as, okay, we're witnessing some terrible things at the same time, but yeah.
Right. How do we hold duality and uncertainty and hope? And yeah, just keep on
I don't
moving the
have the,
project forward.
there's some really very
Yeah.
difficult questions that I also ask myself. And I learned something in this journey I've been on. I'm not going to answer some questions because I can't and I shouldn't, and it's not my place. When I see people being killed here and there, I don't have any philosophical narrative to justify that. There is no justification. So I just shut up because, I don't have the understanding of those people because I'm not in their place. So, I hear a lot of people saying things and kind of giving these explanations, and I'm like, you know what? If you're not made of these people, made of their own cells and DNA, maybe it's not good to, give an opinion.
Hmm. All right. Well, let's have you, instead of an opinion, where can people find you online and your upcoming event, One Sanctum?
Thank you. So you can find me find us in onesanctum.org. And you can find me, and you can also work with me if you want to. Lara at onesanctum.org. And if you want to inquire about attending, you can email info@onesanctum.com. .org, sorry. Everything's org. We are also donating some money to War Child, who are doing amazing work in war zones for children, traumatized children. They have a fantastic program. So whatever tickets you buy from us, percentage will go to them. We aim to create a super enriching event. We would like to leave a little bit changed. That would be wonderful. And if you're very changed, that's going to be even more wonderful. But the main thing is really, what I keep saying is to create a little village for 5 days and hang out and talk and exchange some sort of ideas and time, and yeah, and be also close to Gabor and Cynthia and Rosalind and all these people who have some great things to share. And we need elders. I think we have no elders. That's the other, part of this problem. We have not many people to look up. Now with the whole Epstein files, we find Deepak Chopra in trouble, and I don't know who else, and so very difficult to trust. So I'm glad to hear that there's no monkey business with any of my speakers. So we're all clean, Epstein clean, proofed. Yeah.
Stay strong, everybody. And yeah, that's a whole nother ball of wax that we should get into at some point in the future, because
Yes.
people are really confused. I'm confused too.
Yes, but I think that's what they want us to do, to be confused.
Mm-hmm. Right.
I don't know who they. Who talks a lot about they is Robert.
Oh, he sure does. Yeah. I think yeah, maybe I can start chatting with Robert again. That would be really lovely.
Yeah, we can have a chat together if you want.
Yeah. I love that. All right. Well, Lara, thank you so much. Let's hang out backstage for a minute, and thank you all for watching.
Thank you so much for having me.
You got it. Right.